a physician said to me, he said, Jay, it took a person like yourself, a lay person, to actually write a book of that magnitude, because if 10 doctors came together to try to write it, they would all argue over scientific studies and nothing would get done.
All these celebrities had to get vaccinated. They still have to get vaccinated. And now they're getting sick. They're showing up with neurological symptoms.
Unbelievable,
for their lines of their play. We're starting to see tremors show up, resurgence of cancer, even, a couple cases of myocarditis. I mean, it's like, this is not normal.
So what he was doing was just VO2 max training to elevate, a bunch of other biomarkers and certain health parameters that he was measuring, but no lifting, no bone mineral, no bone bearing or resistance training. It was like a 6-week study, and he put on 7 pounds of actual fat-free skeletal mass. It is insane. This product works for healing soft tissue, aches, sprains, bruises, bone bruises, even like muscle, just muscle aches from getting older.
Hey everybody, Regan Archibald here, and I've got Jay Campbell back to share some of the new insights on peptides, functional medicine, just everything longevity-based and consciousness-based. Because Jay, him and his wife Monica, we got to enjoy having them out at the clinic last month, and I said, Jay, let's dive into the podcast, do another podcast interview, because there's a lot of new things that are going on in the world today. It's as of this recording, it's April 29th of 2024. And man, things have changed a lot since we spoke last, not even a year ago. But Jay, what's most exciting in your life right now?
Man, first off, it's an honor to be back, man. Good to see you, Regan, as always. And again, thank you for treating me and Monica at your amazing clinic out there in Utah. We had a really awesome time. We were just coming from Vegas, March Madness, so it was like the perfect opportunity to recharge. But man, as I was telling you off air, I think we're in a very interesting world right now, because it's society, I think, for the most part, is bifurcating. There's people that are technically in resonance, living in an abundance mentality, a prosperous mentality. And then there's the people that are, connected to the daily soap operas of whatever the narrative is in the news, whether it's on the internet or television or radio or wherever people get their news. And they're, pretty much in what I call the doom and gloom spiral. They're everything is about what might go wrong or what is going wrong. And for people like you and I, dude, like, we're only in the place of like, hey man, the glass is completely half full. Yeah. Biotechnology is exploding, peptides, bioregulators, all these amazing things are happening for people. And we're on the up and up, and things, like, as I told you, and I know it's the same for you, cannot be better. I mean, I really, I have so many people that want to work with me, so many people that want to invest and do different things. And so it's like, I've never been in a place with more abundance in my life. And it's mind blowing too, right? Because if you look around and you do get caught up, and obviously you and I don't pay attention to it, but every now and then people send us social media links. Sure. Yep. And you click on it and it's like, oh God, I wish I didn't go into that. But it's like, there is a lot of crazy stuff happening out in the world right now, but you can't focus on that. All you obviously can focus on is what you can control, which is your vibration, right? And the people in your, extended family and circle. And so that's where my focus is. And so all I can say is that I've never been in a place of more abundance and prosperity than in my life than right now.
Yeah, well, I'd have to second that. And some of the new breakthroughs, I mean, we've got all these cool potential with AI. I mean, with any new invention, you're going to have some challenges, and people are going to have to change the way they're looking at things. But, one thing I've always appreciated about you is you approach life with a different set of rules. You say, okay, well, how can we use this to our benefit? And how can I be the best version of myself to use the new technology or use new medicine to really benefit the people that you serve? And so one of the things that you've done is you've created peptide courses, you've created courses on hormones, and you've had a lot of criticism in your developments and in your evolution. But what are some of the hardest setbacks that you've had to overcome, in the last, decade, or even in the last year, when it comes to, more peptides or, the new medicine?
Well, so I think for me as a non-physician, now obviously, because a lot of people don't know this, I do have a background in molecular biology, right? So I, did get a minor in that in college. My major was international relations. And then I was like a lot of guys, very self-studious in my 20s and early 30s. Like I tell a lot of people that my 20s did not consist of ever going out. My 20s consisted of me reading PubMed and Medline and whatever I had access to back in the early days of the internet, reading studies and like learning about bioenergetics and learning about hormones and experimenting with peptides. I mean, again, as maybe some of the people in your audience don't, but I started using therapeutic peptides through research companies in 2004.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just a fringe thing. And there was really not a lot of science. I mean, there was some science, which is kind of crazy, but like it was tough to find it. And
Yep.
obviously there was nothing like we have now, the robust nature. But I say all that because for me, it was always just kind of overcoming this stigma of not being a trained and licensed medical professional talking to people about this stuff. And that I was obviously a very big hurdle to overcome initially when I first started writing my books, like back in 2014 through 2018. But thankfully, the medical profession, especially in the functional side of things, is very open-minded and very progressive. And they were like, "Dude, you're smart. You know your stuff. You cite,
Yeah.
research and stuff like that. You clearly know your stuff." So most of the people on that side of the fence embraced me. And, it's just been a runaway roller coaster ever since then. And obviously, I've also been blessed to make amazing friends such as yourself, very visionary leaders in the clinical space and medical space. So, in a lot of different ways, I think that not being a physician has actually allowed me the opportunity to expand and grow in ways that I couldn't have if I was, because as you know, doctors are sometimes handheld, either by, some alphabet agency or big pharma or the
Yeah.
FDA or something. And so they can't ever really come together and be really maverick and really novel in what they want to write about, because at some point that, they get paid on not saying some of those things. So it's a different, coexistence when you're a physician. And I think the best quote that I ever received was when I wrote my book, the TOT Bible, which is still the number one selling book of all time on therapeutic hormones. Um, a physician said to me, he said, "Jay, it took a person like yourself, a lay person, to actually write a book of that magnitude, because if 10 doctors came together to try to write it, they would all argue over scientific studies and nothing would get done." Because
Yeah.
one guy would be point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint, and then it would never be written. He said, so it took you overcoming the inertia of clinical medicine to write it, because you didn't have a foot in the game and you didn't really care, right? You were just presenting what you had experienced for 20 years and then also what you were able to study. Whereas the clinical community could never put it together because too many doctors would be at odds over this, what study said what, and,
Yeah.
what comorbid patient population group, negated this one and that. So I think that's really big, my biggest obstacles. But now, I feel very comfortable and obviously confident, when I'm in a room with other physicians, because I feel like I know the material just as well as they do.
No, no question about it. And I think, one of the challenges in the medical establishment is it's not just the federal agencies, but then you've got the state boards, and some state boards would get really pissed off. They're like, "Hey, Dr. Smith, you just published this book on testosterone, and that does not fit within our paradigm. We're going to have to suspend your license." I mean,
That's exactly right.
yeah, it's the First Amendment applies to every other American citizen except the ones who have specific licenses. So, and we saw that during COVID. How many doctors just got completely slammed for having an opinion? Actually, it was, even though it was backed up by enormous amounts of science. And then it takes, what, 4 years later, now we're starting to unearth all of the dangers of the vaccine. We're saying, I just got off a call with one of my clients who works with celebrities, and basically it's like all these celebrities had to get vaccinated. They still have to get vaccinated. And now they're getting sick. They're showing up with neurological symptoms. They can't
Unbelievable,
remember their
man.
lines of their play. We're starting to see tremors show up, resurgence of cancer, even, a couple cases of myocarditis. I mean, it's like, this is not normal. He's like, "I've been in the industry for 30 years and I've never seen anything like it." But here it is, 3, 4 years later, and we're seeing the unintended consequences of silencing some of the smartest people in society.
It's crazy to think about, but Well, yeah, I mean, I'm hearing the same thing. You know, we obviously travel in the same circles. I would have thought, and going back to then in that time, that they would have had doctors that looked the other way and said, "Here's your vaccine card
Right.
or pass or whatever," and not
Right.
got the
Yeah.
vaccine. But like, it's mind blowing to think that so many of these famous, well-to-do, sophisticated people, you know, were forcibly vaxxed or whatever. I mean, because that's what it was, right? Let's just be honest. It was like, you do this or you get cut off or you get blackballed from the industry or whatever it is that you do. And so, yeah, dude, I mean, and look, I'll say this without using the person's name. This is a relative. It is mind blowing, the baby boomer population, how brainwashed and hoodwinked they were. Because I literally just spoke to this person and he told me that four of his friends who are all similar age, and let's just call them again boomers, so you know they're 68 plus, all died with aggressive forms of cancer that came on, and 6 months later they were gone. Now,
Correct.
here's the crazy part, Reagan. In speaking to this person, never once did he say to me, or did he actually like tie it together that it was due to the 4 shots or the 3 shots and the 2 boosters and all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there like screaming under my breath, thinking like, bro,
Wow.
like, do you not see this? But that's the thing, is that generation was forced by the television, right? Because they all watch CNN or Fox or MSNBC, whatever it is. Get your shot, get your shot, get your shot, get your shot. You know, it's the right thing to do. Everybody else is doing it. You know, go along, get along. You got to do it. It's for society, blah, blah, blah. And dude, they're so brainwashed by the whole thing that they don't actually realize that the turbo cancers, yes, I said it, it's a word,
Yeah.
that are spreading across, this population group are being caused by that. And, the sad part is medicine, for the most part, will never be found guilty because, they'll say, oh, no, it was a cancer. It was
Right.
this heart
Oh, yeah.
disease. It was this heart abnormality. It was, this, that, and the other. They'll come up with something. But we both know, dude, that all of these people are dealing with results or side effects, or let's just call it downstream third order effects from the vaccine.
Yeah. Well, and that's, a big thing that we see in blood labs right now is we can look at different markers. We look at homocysteine, you look at ferritin levels, you look at
Incredible.
fibrinogen, C-reactive protein, and there's a reason why all those markers are elevated. Alk phos is low. I mean, it's a dangerous state. So, but there's treatments you can do. That's one reason Jay and I love peptides. You can throw in some BPC, some thymosin beta-4, ABP7. There's ways of helping protect your blood vessels, even the growth hormone releasing peptides.
Yep.
And then there's other things like lumbarokinase, nattokinase that can pull out some of those prions or spike proteins. What else are you finding is effective on your side of the fence for some of the vax injured folks?
Well, I'm glad you brought up nattokinase, but I've known about nattokinase for a long time. There was actually a guy in the bro world, Dante Trudell. That's not his real name. That's his pen name that he uses on the internet. But he was talking about nattokinase improving lipids and hematocrit and hemoglobin literally 10 years ago. But
Okay.
LL31 and LL37 are both pretty amazing. Like, I mean, and this is real new stuff when I say like in the last 4 to 6 months, like, both of those peptides are pretty multifunctional peptides. I mean, I think we know that, what is it? Is it, I get them confused sometimes. Is it 31's the antimicrobial and then 37 is, what's the difference?
No, 37 is the AMP.
That's what I meant. Yeah. LL37. And then what is there?
And you're
is there
thinking
an LL31?
SS31.
Yeah, SS31. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and that corrects the mitochondria. Don't even worry. I can't
My
believe
brain
we
is
got Jay
melted,
Campbell
man.
stumped
Sorry
on a
about that.
peptide. I got you too amped up on talking about the
No, but
political.
LL37 is, I knew about it, but I'm hearing all sorts of things about people using it for, anti-pathogenic response mechanisms. I mean, it does a lot.
Oh
And
man,
I mean, I've actually even heard that it helps people sleep. Have you heard about like improving quality of sleep too?
I haven't. No, this is the first time I've heard of sleep being. I know with the scarring, it helps with scar tissue. It's angiogenic, and then it breaks through biofilms. I mean, it eradicates any infections in the body.
So supposedly, yes. So supposedly very micro dosing of it actually helps with deep sleep. And I did not know this at all, but a lot of people are talking about this in the functional medicine space about microdosing it for deep sleep. And I'm like, what? There's somebody that just wrote not a paper, but an article about that use case for it. And I'll send it to you, but I had never heard about it either. It was literally like 2 or 3 weeks ago I read this. I was like, wow. So it just goes to show you that even the peptides that you and I know and love and are familiar with even have functions that we really still don't even know, because obviously there's just not enough use case and there's not enough people using them for these intended purposes other than what we already know them for.
Well, I think the challenge in studying peptides is they're pleiotropic. So it's not like a small molecule drug where you're just forcing it down one pathway, you're suppressing a system in the body. Like LL37, it's like, cool, you and I just named three things that it's really beneficial for: reducing scar tissue, that helps eradicate infections, and then the new one is sleep. But there's probably 20 other things that it's doing in the body, because once you turn on a specific set of genes, your body just goes to work. I mean, it's just like creating a symphony in your biology.
What are your thoughts on MOTS, right? MOTS, we all know about MOTS, but this is my opinion and just based on my user experience, but I have had people who are extremely optimized tell me that they still get good benefit from it. But in my experience using MOTS, I don't see, I felt it, like the very first time I was using it was back in the days when Ryan Smith was like, oh, well, use half the vial.
Right. Yeah.
Who knows, right? But I remember injecting it the very first time, and I was like, it kept me up. It wired me. Obviously, I'm a very mitochondrial optimized guy, so whatever it did for me, it just like really wired me, and I was like, whoa, I need to sleep. But I'm hearing stories from some people who are actually pretty optimized too, that say that actually enhances fat loss, enhances thermogenesis. That they're seeing that. Now, obviously, I know that it does really good things in people that are not as mitochondrial optimized, but what are your thoughts on using MOTS-C for people that are already pretty optimized?
I think it's great. You want to, cycle it on, but use it with methylene blue, because it's working on that electron transport chain. You get that expression of MOTS-C, and then make sure you stack it with a sauna, because just by being in a sauna, the heat shock proteins will activate your own mitochondrial peptides. And so, and then if you stack it with SS31, so methylene blue, MOTS-C, now you're getting the transmission of energy, the AMPK pathways activated. And then SS31 is repairing the mitochondrial damage. And so I think where a lot of people get kind of wigged out is there's some mitogenesis that occurs from SS31 and mitophagy that you don't get from MOTS-C. And so sometimes it pushes things too quickly and you don't quite have the transmission to handle that kind of horsepower.
So do you like using those in combination depending on the person?
Yep. Because all three of those are working on a different part of the pathway, but they work synergistically. And if you want to add in like a little bit of NAD for the sirtuin activation, that can help too. So yeah, that's what I find for optimized humans. You've got to have the SS31 on the back end.
How do you for NAD right now, like how do you like dosing it? There's so many different ways, people talk about patches, there's the powders, Dr. Shi has his little NAD powder. But and obviously there's injectable formulations too, but like what is your favorite way to dose NAD these days?
I mean, the precursors are really good orally, like some nicotinamide riboside. I like the RG3 Synapse and the nasal spray. But then I also like just doing a subcutaneous injection of a microdose. And so maybe like, 0.5, like micrograms. I mean, just a small amount of NAD subcutaneously injected seems to work really well.
So I just came back from AMMG medical conference, and Dr. Dan Stickler, who I know he did an amazing presentation, and he was talking. He's one of those guys that's working down there on the island off of Honduras in the economic free zone, so they can do whatever they want there, right? He was talking about using, and again, I know you're familiar with this, but plasmapheresis, but with what was it? It's
cord plasma.
What is it?
Is he using cord plasma down there?
Yeah, he's using cord plasma, but it's what is the peptide? and you and I are both familiar with this peptide, and it's really not that good of a peptide when you just inject it by itself. But the way that he's using it, it just literally skip. It's a growth hormone peptide. But anyway, I'll send it to you.
Like
I'll send you this entire
sermorelin or
presentation.
okay.
It's unbelievable. But he put on, so he did the study on himself, and he's a wiry little guy, right? So he's like
Mhm. Yep.
135 pounds, 140 pounds. But he did a 6-week study with this. Why is it just? It's just right on the tip of my Oh, it'll come to me. But he put on 7 pounds of skeletal mass without lifting. So what he was doing was just VO2 max training to elevate, a bunch of other biomarkers and certain health parameters that he was measuring, but no lifting, no bone mineral, no bone bearing or resistance training. It was like a 6-week study, and he put on 7 pounds of
Wow.
actual fat-free skeletal mass. And so he was saying at the presentation that the opportunity for this as a growth agent is unlike anything he's actually ever seen, because he's like, somebody like me is extremely dialed. I have very low body fat, and I wasn't even lifting weights. He's like, I would imagine that if I was lifting weights, I would have doubled the skeletal mass
Dude,
gains.
that's
Dude, I don't
amazing.
know why this peptide is not in my brain. It
Well,
literally is escaping me. You know what it is. We both know what it is. It's one of those, it's like one of the IGF 1R3 modified things or whatever, but they're using it in this way with through the plasma exchange stuff. And
okay. Like CJC
no,
1295,
it's not
Betsy
CJC. It's
Skippa,
yeah,
MK
not
677.
MK677. No,
And
you'll know what it is when I get it. I have his presentation. I don't want to waste
okay,
time thinking about it on
shoot
the
it over.
podcast,
But
but I'll
we're
send you his
doing,
presentation. It's pretty fascinating.
yeah, we've seen amazing results with our cord plasma. So we use plasmapheresis with just subcutaneous injections of
Yeah,
concentrated umbilical cord blood plasma. Just phenomenal. I just talked to one of my clients this morning. She's like, man, for the last 10 years, I've felt my age, and now I finally feel young again. She's sleeping better.
that's
I
awesome.
gained 23 minutes of deep sleep just by doing that. I'd love to see his protocol because I'll try to duplicate it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm gonna send it to you. I'm literally looking. You got me okay right here. AMMG lectures. I'm just gonna open it while I'm talking to you, but keep asking
oh,
me questions
beautiful.
so I can get to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think,
Follistatin, dude.
oh, fall, of course, follistatin. Yeah, that's a major one.
So
So
he's got like a glucose monitor with a constant, drip of it in the way that they're administering it. But it's basically plasmid gene therapy. You already know this, and he's using follistatin and clotho, and it's like he said it's out of this world stuff. I mean, everybody in the place, and there were 600 people in the lecture hall. We're all standing in line to talk to him after he literally stood up there, and I love Nan. He's like, look, before any of you ask, none of this is FDA approved. None of
no.
this is experimentally approved. Don't ask. If you ask me a question, I won't answer it.
Yeah, and please don't try this at home, you biohackers out there. This is not Jay and Reagan giving medical advice.
But it was pretty amazing. I mean, he's basically saying that this plasma dilution and using this, like you said, literally delays aging probably better than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, we're so excited about it. And I think I mean, and once again, it goes back to the original conversation we're having. There's certain people out there who are pushing medicine forward, and then there's
Yeah.
other people who have an agenda. One thing that you've done recently is, you're a bit outspoken about the Huberman podcast, and I thought it was kind of interesting because for the most part, he's lined up with a lot of us promoting more natural therapies and giving
Yep.
alternatives. But I want to hear your perspective on it, and just kind of what are the red flags you've seen along the way?
Well, so very truthfully, I respect Dr. Huberman. We've never met. I hope that day at some point occurs. But I was very outspoken in a video that I did for my channel that got actually huge views because my clip team put it up. And one of his videos, or one of the clips that we did analyzing it, was talking about BPC and how it's a placebo, and there's only been benefit in animal studies. And I basically called him out and said that's BS, because there's tons of clinical people who've been using BPC for a decade, in their patients, and they know that it works. And it's not placebo when you use it yourself, as I have for more than 15 years and, healed myself at rapid speed and rates, well beyond natural healing would ever have been. And, the one thing I would say is from watching his podcast, it's very clear two things. A, he doesn't use peptides because you can tell the way he speaks about them. I'm not saying he hasn't used them, but he's not like you and I, right? Where we've been using peptides for a long time with a lot of different people.
Yeah, he'll be like, oh, I use sermorelin, but I didn't sleep as well. I'm like, how do you not sleep well on a growth hormone releasing peptide? But anyway, that's that. Once again,
it was very obvious that he's not an experienced user of peptides. So that was number one. And then number two, and again, I think a lot of people in the industry that follow both of us, that also follow him, also know that at the end of the day, the truth is that, he works for Stanford. And, Stanford as a research, institute or / university, is not out there, promulgating peptides. I mean, you and I both know that the FDA stance on peptides is they're unsafe and potentially harmful. I mean, that's, what they said in September 29th of last year with classifying 26 peptides as class 2 or whatever. So at the end of the day, he's very careful in how he speaks about peptides because, again, his watchdog or, overlords are, those folks, right? So he has to be very, very careful. But, the one thing I'll just mention on this podcast is, as you know, because we talked about it off air, is that he saw one of my clips on YouTube, or not YouTube, it was Twitter. What doesn't matter? They're all the same, right? And he said to me, because we said you're clearly reading off of a teleprompter in the one of the clips, and he said on his Twitter in a response that he doesn't. And so then that was at my point. I wrote back and I said, dude, come on. So, and as I told you, in his defense, maybe it's not him, right? Because as we know in social media today, there's people answering for other people. I mean, I do the same thing on Instagram. If somebody sends me a message, I have an autoresponder, because I get so many messages about so many things. And so I understand that. So maybe it wasn't him in his defense, but, if it was, I still say, BS. But at the end of the day, to summarize, he's not an experienced peptide user. He shouldn't really be talking. It's one of those things where stay in your lane. He probably should not have put a podcast out about peptides without having the experience talking about them that in my opinion, he should have.
Yeah, I thought the podcast in general, it almost felt like a politician because it was like, well, are you for him? Are you not for him? Like, it was just like, and here's the pot, and here, it's just like so back and forth. And then even the placebo on BPC, it's like, well, animals are immune from placebo effects. Like there's not a horse that's going to tell you, oh, I feel better because you gave me that medication. Like, it's like,
I should have actually covered that because that's so true. That's awesome. That's a really good point.
Yeah. Your dog either is sick or not sick. It doesn't they can't please, placebo is, I shall please you. It's like, no, it's
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I guess if you look into the future, there's a lot coming up, with new technology, with AI. People are concerned about, what the future is going to look like. You and I see the future as only being more exciting than the past and only getting bigger, better, and more abundant. But what are some of the big things that you see coming down the pipeline from, peptide perspective or regenerative medicine? I mean, you talked about Dr. Stickler. I think that's a big thing coming up, the cord plasma exchange. But what else are you seeing?
I think personally, bioregulators are the new frontier. I think that, as more and more of them get out into the mainstream, I think the good news about bioregulators that you and I didn't talk about last time, and nobody has, so I'll just put it out there right now, is right now, the GRAS, the U.S. Food and Drug Association, associates them as supplements.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like that is a huge win for the population because they don't see them as drugs / biological agents that may have side effects or systemic issues or blah, 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 like they do peptides and stem cells and exosomes and plasmid gene therapy. These are totally separate. So I personally think that as the Russian situation in Ukraine, settles and smooths out. And I think, from a historical purpose, I think, the audience deserves to know this. Dr. Cavinson died in December, right? And since he died, his son has taken over the quote unquote bioregulator empire. And and I don't know this person, and this is not speculation, but just hearsay from other people who do and work with him. But the bioregulator industry right now is still at a standstill because the supply chain is massively constricted.
Yeah. No, we,
And you've got
yeah.
certain, as you know, you've got certain
Yeah.
resellers in the United States, certain resellers in UAE, certain resellers in the UK that are really in charge of distributing bioregulators to the global supply chain. And it's a mess, dude. Most people right now, as you know, your patients, I mean, we all know this, like you try to order bioregulators from somebody online and they take your money and then they don't deliver.
Right. Yeah.
You're like, what's
Crazy.
going on? But
Yeah.
I've used bioregulators, and in the bioregulators that I've used personally, I've gotten incredible response.
Hmm.
And we are in the process of developing, it's not really developed, it's already done, but getting patents and trademark and all that stuff on a healing cream of bioregulator, basically a sports cream that's as
Oh,
strong
nice.
as, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, it's as strong as BPC and TB500 and might be stronger. And obviously, the benefit of it is there's no barrier of entry, Reagan, because people aren't afraid to inject it, right? It's just literally a rub-on
Yeah,
cream.
just
So
topical.
yeah,
Wow.
it's insane. It's got 5 bioregulators in it. It's got an emollient, it's got a what do you call it? A form that allows it to go through first pass of the dermis. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It smells good. There's no burn. You can use it on anything except open wounds. But I see that in those because, as you know, dude, there's literally hundreds of other bioregulators that aren't even being like formatted for mass production. I mean, the Russians are using them. The Russians have been using bioregulators, by the way, since the 30s, which
Yeah.
is incredible, right? And
Wow.
we just got them.
The 30s, I didn't know it was going on that long. I knew, he originally started working with the Russian military, and that's where it all came about. But so how do you stack them? I mean, do you have different creams with different bioregulators? I think there's 24 major bioregulators that Dr. Covinson has, kind of used in his protocols. But what did you do in your formulas?
So I mean, I obviously I can't share the formulation yet until it's actually patented and stuff like that. But all of these bioregulators, but together, they're just they're synergistic and they enhance healing. But the ones that I've personally used are Libidon for my prostate,
Yeah.
which I feel has definitely worked. I mean, again, and for me, I'm a 53-year-old guy. I think every guy that gets into their 50s and 60s, starts to lose volume on their urine stream.
Yeah.
It's just because obviously the prostate is growing in size as we get older and stuff like that. And I've gotten down now to where I can sleep 6 hours without having to wake up and take a pee, which is for
Right.
me, for my restorative sleep, is a massive boon.
Big
And then
improvement.
I've used the Pineolon stuff. I've taken high dosages of melatonin using Pineolon, and I've had just incredible, lucid,
Mm.
deep, incredible dreams. I mean, like I would actually say, Doris Law, she has a group of people in her research where they're literally doing astral body traveling,
Wow.
from Pineolon and high dosages of melatonin. So I just think, so I've used Pineolon, and then I've also used the, what is the heart, the vascular bioregulator?
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. We just call it the Cardio Plus. We have the three peptides with it.
yeah,
Remember the Russian
that's
name.
that one
Sorry.
too. Ventafort. I haven't noticed like physiologically a benefit or a difference in it, but I will say this, that I've never had a better VO2 max, and my HRV is incredible since I
Yeah.
started using that. So, I mean, I think that all of these things do offer a slight advantage even to super optimized people. But as far as like stacking them and like what you can use together, I mean, I do like the idea, and this is the way I've used them, that you don't have to use them all the time,
Yeah.
right? And they're not expensive, right? So it's like with Libidon, I did do double the dose just to see,
Yeah.
but I used double the dose for 10 days, took a month off, and then did double the dose again for another 10 days. And I definitely got improvement of my prostate. It also improved erectile strength. So there's
Nice.
a lot, but that would probably be a byproduct,
Sure.
right, of reducing the size. So, I mean, there's a lot of things and there's a lot of other bioregulators, but I mean, right now, Reagan, the issue is, again, is just getting them. That's the
Yeah.
hardest part,
Yeah.
you know?
That's what we've noticed too. And the supply chain. Well, I'm glad you guys are getting on that. So what's the timeline I'd love to be able to have access to them.
So, I would hopefully tell you that I have so many people asking me these questions. I'm like, I feel like a politician telling you. I mean, I honestly would like to have this to be able to be shipped by middle of June.
Okay.
We right now have enough raw materials to make 2,000 bottles, but I've already told them. I mean, it works. So I might have some, dude.
Yeah.
It works. It is insane. This
Uh,
product works for healing soft tissue, aches, sprains, bruises, bone bruises, even like muscle, just muscle aches from getting older.
yeah.
You know,
Okay.
rubbing in, and it's no exaggeration, 30 to 45 minutes, like less pain. And healing starts immediately, like within 24 to 36 hours. I mean, I literally, no exaggeration, about a month ago, was leg pressing, and I don't lift heavy anymore these days. But when you go, you're like, oh, I'm gonna do one more rep,
Yep.
and then you feel it go, and you're like, oh,
Yep.
I
You know, you
tweaked it,
overdid it.
dude. Right in my knee too, right in my right side of my patellar tendon, and I rubbed this stuff in, and I swear to God, in 2 days it was gone.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So I mean, it's a very powerful. And again, I don't want people to think it's like anyone who's used a high bolus of BPC and TB500 knows how fast the healing is with that.
Yeah.
That's what this is like. But I personally think, and again, it's psychological or psychogenic or whatever, I think you notice this faster because you feel it. And it might be somewhat placebo, might be somewhat just manifested, but you're putting it into the skin or to the actual localized area, and you just feel it regenerating. And there's also like it's not a pain anesthetizer or whatever, but you actually just feel inflammation suppression really fast.
Jeez. Well,
It's
well done.
amazing stuff.
It sounds great. I mean, and especially if you've got the capabilities. I mean, they're so small. Just for those of you who don't know, a bioregulator is usually 5 amino acid chains or fewer. Most of them are like 3, and
Yep.
they're just structured in a certain shape. But that way, it makes sense to do it transdermally because it's easy to absorb. It's not a bigger molecule.
Exactly.
BPC 157, our mutual friend, Dr. Buzz Korth, he's made one, but you have to use iontophoresis on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It sounds
Yeah.
like yours, you can just apply it directly and then it gets absorbed. And what a better way to get some bioregulators to
Yeah,
activate.
I mean, it's a game changer. I mean, there's no doubt. And the guy that, did this has been working with the Russians for like 17 years. He's got like a big sports performance background and stuff like that. He's also worked with the Bulgarian Olympic team and stuff like that. So, he's been a follower. He's been in like the ecosystem for 12 years, and he's been just pounding me for like 2 years about this. And finally I started listening to him like 5 months ago, and here we are. We actually just literally got the labels and the shipping in for it today. It's absolutely fantastic. But I mean, again, very truthfully, I'm just very reluctant because I know how profound it is and how well it works, and I don't know how we can scale it because there's still a limitation on getting products or getting raw materials out of Russia. That's the
Yeah.
issue. I mean, like I said, we have enough right now for 1,300 vials now and 2,000 total. And that's like all of the raw materials that were available to make those vials of these bioregulators till who knows.
Man.
And if you
Well,
speak to anybody right now who's in the bioregulating manufacturing, and there are some people, for Garmonia, they'll tell you that they don't even know their supply chain.
yeah. Why can't we get some new manufacturers of the bioregulators?
So the rumor is, and again, I'm not firsthand, but the rumor is that it's all due to the war in the Ukraine. And from what I understand, and I don't know this for sure, but I've heard this from too many people. So to go back a little bit, 2 years ago when bioregulators just magically appeared, remember, because now they're on Amazon when you can find them.
Yep.
A lab was blown up either in Russia or Ukraine, which I think was the major manufacturing facility.
Mm.
And as soon as that happened, all of a sudden it was like Ali Ali oxen free, because the Russians had always blackballed any form of bioregulators available in the United States. In fact, they have all the patents. They even would block
Right.
anybody attempting to manufacture it. They would hammer people because, I know a lot of people in the biochemical space, and they had been telling me stories about bioregulators 10, 12 years ago, but it was always like, oh, these top secret Russian peptides. and you can't
Right.
get them in the United States and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, I just remember seeing something on Amazon. I sent it to one of my top biochemist buddies. I was like, what the hell is this? And he was like, holy shit. And then it was kind of like, digging through the rubble of like what's going on. Literally, it was probably literally and figuratively digging through the rubble. But they
Yeah.
just decided to put them on Amazon. I think this was, literally, I want to say about this time last year, dude. I think it's been about a
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
that they just
Wow.
started appearing in the United States. And now you've got Quiche Supplements, which is in Seattle. I know the guy that owns that. You've got the guys at Marvel Health or Profound Health, which is anti-aging supplements. They're
Yeah.
selling them. And now there's a couple other resellers that have popped up, but they're all literally all constrained by the supply chain issues.
Man. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you doing the work to get that out. And by the way, everyone who's listening to this, check back and we'll make sure that, if this is, mid-June, July 24, then we should be, hopefully we can be carrying it. So let
Yeah,
me know
for
how
sure,
to
dude.
get a
And,
hold
and
of it
you'll
when
be
it's
like the
done.
first person that I call, like when I realize that we have supply,
Cool.
to get it to you, because obviously we'll build a giant wholesale, team distribution thing. So, I honestly, I'm not kidding you. I think it's $1 billion product. I know that's a very outlandish statement, but it works better than anything. And as you know, dude, there's no barrier of entry.
Yeah.
Nobody is afraid to put something that's topical on their body.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to worry about a compromised digestive system. Half the supplements you take don't get where you want them to go because of that. And so makes a lot of sense. So that's a big future. Well, Jay, this has been an exciting conversation, and I think we covered a ton of ground. So make sure you guys, go back, listen to it, share it with your friends, family, loved ones. Unless you don't want them to be healthy and learn about new things, then don't worry about sharing it. But but Jay, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you or to take your courses or get your books?
For sure, the best, easy, a couple ways. So for every time I'm on a podcast, and thank you again for having me. I'm always blessed to be able to be on amazing shows such as yours. But go to jcampbell.com/free books, and you can download a PDF copy of all my 7 first books, which are many of them are international bestsellers, and then my 2 most recent ones, which all came out last year, which are the peptides, optimize your health with therapeutic peptides, and my newest book, which came out in September, October of last year, 30 Days to Shreds, which is actually an amazing book on teaching people how to use GLP-1 agonists precisely in the context of health and longevity. Both of those books you can get for free, but it's just the first 2 chapters in the introduction. And then to find me online, I'm just Jay Campbell 333 on all social media. And if you do send me a message, somebody on my team will get back to you.
Love it. Awesome, Jay. Well, this has been great. Appreciate your friendship and collaboration. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you, Regan. I appreciate it.